Welcome to the Beyond Bloated Podcast. I'm Carly, a certified health coach helping women under 50 ditch their bloat without having to follow super strict and stressful protocols. As someone who's struggled with all sorts of digestive issues for over 5 years, I know exactly how you're feeling. I also know that there's a way to feel better, and it doesn't have to involve tons of expensive supplements and insanely restrictive diets. Join me as I share all of my bloat-busting wisdom to help you say goodbye to that bloated belly and regain your confidence. It's time for you to move beyond bloated. Hello, everyone. This morning I went and got blood work done, which is a traumatic event for me. I'm 30 now, and I, before today, have had blood work done one time in my life, and that was last year because I wanted to check, my iron levels, my B12, all the things, because I've never had it checked. And so I did that last year, and it was even more traumatic last year because I've had this phobia of needles and blood, things like that, for as long as I can remember. So, like in previous scenarios when a doctor was like, you should go get blood work, I would have this panic response just thinking about it. And so I would always just shut that down immediately and be like, no, thank you. I'm not going to get blood work done. But last year I was in a state of desperation, and I was like, I need to find out what's going on. So I went and got blood work done. I had a mini meltdown while I was there, and then I got it done and it was fine. So this year, since I had already done it last year, I was like, okay, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. And I was able to go through the process a lot more smoothly. So that's a win. That's a win for me this morning. It's funny because I am a pretty stubborn individual, and I would say to my doctors, like, no, I'm not getting blood work done. I don't need blood work done. I will never get blood work done. And they would be like, you're going to have to get blood work done at some point in your life. And I was like, no, I'll just make it all the way through without ever having my blood taken, which was a little delusional, clearly. What I find interesting, and this is the case for a lot of things, honestly, but it wasn't somebody else telling me that I needed to get it done that eventually pushed me to do it. It was my own decisions and my own thoughts. I had decided the results that the blood work would give me is something that I want. And so the only way to get that is to face my fear and get my blood drawn. So I was the one who convinced myself to do it. It wasn't anything external. It came from within me. I was like, I'm going to get this done because I want the results. I want the results because I want to see what's going on so that I can, make some changes if needed and feel better. This is actually called intrinsic motivation opposed to external motivation. Studies have shown intrinsic motivation is the best way to make a change in your life and make it permanent and stick. So I'm just saying, if you're struggling to make any of the changes that either I've recommended or you've heard elsewhere to, improve your gut health, eliminate bloat, all the things you're trying to accomplish, think about why you're doing the things. If your reasoning is because Carly told me to, you're not going to stick with it. You might be able to do it for a week or so, and then you're going to fall off, and that's that. If your reasoning is, I'm making this change because I know it's going to improve my gut health, which is going to help me eliminate bloat, so then I can wear the cute bikini that I bought on my vacation coming up, and that's going to make me happy and feel good about myself. That is the motivation that's going to keep you going because it's for you. You've decided that you want it. Nobody else has told you that. So that's my little motivational speech for you before we jump into today's topic, which is not exactly related to what I've just talked about, but it is in a way, because today I am talking about 5 common ingredients that are causing you to bloat. And I know that I talk a lot about how restrictive diets are not the answer. You might be like, what? We're now taking food out of our diets? Kind of. I would argue that the items on this list are not really food. They're pretty trashy ingredients that are in a lot of packaged foods, and they suck. They cause a lot of symptoms, including bloating and gas. They can disrupt the gut microbiome. They're not real food. So no, I am not telling you to eliminate fruits and vegetables and grains and all the healthy things. But I am going to tell you about 5 common ingredients that are in a lot of packaged foods that may be triggering your bloating. My whole spiel at the beginning of this episode relates because, again, I'm going to tell you some information that you can choose to implement or you can choose not to. That's completely up to you. But again, you need to find the motivation within yourself. Why are you doing this? Why do you want to do this? To make it stick. At the end of the day, I can give you all the information in the world that you need to improve your gut health and improve your symptoms, but you're the one that needs to make the changes. If you really are struggling and you're trying and you just need some extra help, I do work with clients one-on-one, and this is exactly what we do. I'm basically your biggest cheerleader for 16 weeks, and I'm also holding you accountable. So I'm checking in, seeing if you're doing the things, if you're not, why, what can we do to make a change so that you are able to do the things. Basically, we just make like this foolproof plan that's going to help you implement the changes that you want to make to improve your gut health. I am currently accepting new clients, so if you're interested or you want to learn more about the program, go to my website, beyondbloated.com/beyond-the-bloating. That is my signature program. I'll link it in the show notes. You can head there and all the information about the program is there. If you have any questions, you can email me, DM me on Instagram, get a hold of me however you'd like, and I would be happy to answer them. Alternatively, you can book a free 20-minute discovery call with me where we can discuss what your challenges are, what your goals are, and decide if we are a match for your gut health journey. And if we decide, yes, this is a match made in heaven, we will work together for 16 weeks and get your gut in tip-top shape. Okay, back to the topic at hand. So there are ingredients that are very common, lurking in your fridge and pantry probably as we speak. They commonly cause bloating, and not just in unhealthy individuals, but in healthy individuals too. Like, these ingredients are not good ingredients, and maybe you could tolerate them once upon a time, but over time, the microbiome gets disrupted by a lot of these ingredients, and they're in a lot of our food. So it's not like you're eating these in small quantities. You know, everybody says everything in moderation. This is not moderation. I'm talking in everything type ingredients. So here we go. Starting off, number 1 on our list of 5, artificial sweeteners. I'm pretty sure I've talked about these on the podcast before, but I'm going to keep doing it. So artificial sweeteners are often marketed as the guilt-free alternative to sugar. So it seems like, wow, this is a sweet deal, pun intended, but it's really not. Artificial sweeteners are things like sorbitol, mannitol, and any other artificial sweetener ending in OL. Hey everyone, Carly here. If you are tired of feeling bloated and uncomfortable, which I know you are, I have something that can really help. My free ultimate guide to bloat busting. I've been there myself, and I know how frustrating it is to try super restrictive diets and expensive supplements without getting results. If those methods were going to work, they would have worked by now. That's why I created this guide to offer you a different approach. In the ultimate guide to bloat busting, you'll learn techniques to listen to your body and eat with intention, avoiding overeating and choosing foods that truly benefit you, tips for proper hydration to support digestion and reduce bloating, a guide to delicious foods that promote a healthy gut and how to easily incorporate them into your meals, and effective methods to manage stress, which plays a huge role in gut health. These simple, practical strategies can make a big difference in your daily life, helping you feel lighter, more energized, and comfortable in your own skin. Ready to ditch the bloat without strict diets or costly supplements? Download your free copy today at beyondbloated.com/ultimate-guide and start your journey to a bloat-free life. Now, let's get back to it. And they can alter the balance of bacteria in the gut, which leads to dysbiosis. Dysbiosis then causes tons of different gut issues like inflammatory bowel disease, celiac disease, and all the symptoms that you're experiencing, bloating, gas, constipation, diarrhea, all of the things can be linked back to dysbiosis. All that means is your gut bacteria is out of balance. The good should keep the bad in check so that you don't experience symptoms, but dysbiosis means that balance is now wacky and you probably don't have enough good, you have too much bad, the bad is getting out of control and wreaking havoc on your entire body. It is actually assumed that dysbiosis is the root cause of a lot of other serious health conditions as well, such as arthritis, type 2 diabetes, and even heart disease. When we eat artificial sweeteners, they travel through the digestive tract basically undigested. So then they reach our large intestine and become food for the bacteria that live there. Because basically all of your bacteria live in the large intestine. At least that's where they're supposed to be. So those bacteria then start to ferment the sweeteners, and they produce gas like hydrogen and methane as a byproduct. And then these gases accumulate, and they can lead to abdominal distension, aka bloating, discomfort, gas, all the things that you hate. Even if you don't go out and buy artificial sweeteners to bake with or cook with or anything like that, they are in a ton of our products. Anything sugar-free, like sugar-free gum, diet soda, diet or sugar-free snacks, they almost always have artificial sweeteners because, they've taken out the sugar, but they still want you to eat it, and that means it has to taste good. So they sweeten it with artificial sweeteners. These products are usually marketed as the healthier alternative to the sugar-loaded counterpart. Like if you drink a Coke, that's filled with sugar. If you drink a Diet Coke, that's filled with aspartame. Neither are good. I would much rather prefer somebody eat a snack that uses coconut sugar or honey or maple syrup, some sort of natural sweetener, rather than an artificial sweetener. If you find yourself experiencing gas, bloating, or other GI symptoms after you consume products, flip over the ingredient list and check out if there is artificial sweeteners there. Maybe start to keep track. I notice I get really bloated after drinking diet soda. That might be your indicator that artificial sweeteners are a trigger for you. Although carbonated beverages are also a bloating trigger. I mentioned that in another episode where I talked about 5 habits that contribute to your bloating and what to do to change them. I'll link that in the show notes in case you want to know more about those. But for now, we're focusing on the ingredients, and the ingredient in the diet soda that could be causing your gut issues is artificial sweeteners. Number 2 on the list, high-fructose corn syrup. This is exactly what I am talking about when I say this list is not filled with real food. This shit is not food. It is an artificial sugar made from corn syrup, and it's a staple sweetener in so many ultra-processed food products. One of the reasons why high-fructose corn syrup causes bloating and other digestive issues in certain people is because it has a very high fructose content, higher than traditional sugar. And some people have fructose malabsorption or a fructose sensitivity. If you have SIBO, a lot of the times your body reacts to fructose. So the body struggles to absorb and process fructose efficiently, and that results in undigested fructose traveling to your large intestine where it ferments and produces gas, which causes the bloating. Even if you do not experience gas or bloating or anything like that from eating the high fructose corn syrup, so maybe you're not intolerant or sensitive to fructose, I still do not recommend that anybody eats this shit. A high intake of fructose leads to increased liver fat. Liver fat accumulates and can eventually lead to very serious health problems, such as fatty liver disease and type 2 diabetes. The issue, once again, is that high fructose corn syrup is in so much of our ultra-processed food, and sadly, the majority of people's diets these days consists of ultra-processed food. I'm talking sodas, fruit juices, sweetened snacks, and even condiments. They all often contain high fructose corn syrup as their primary sweetener, which means you flip over the label, you look at the ingredients, and high fructose corn syrup is like number 1 or number 2 in the ingredient list. That is not good. We don't want to eat that much high fructose corn syrup. We actually don't want to eat any of it. The best way to minimize or completely eliminate your consumption of high fructose corn syrup trash is to read your ingredient labels. I know I've talked about this extensively in the past, but it is extremely important. Our food labels are designed to mislead us. They don't want you to know that you are eating an insane amount of high fructose corn syrup and that's going to cause you fatty liver disease and type 2 diabetes. Then you're not going to want it. So you need to do the research yourself, and all you have to do, because I've already given you the information, high fructose corn syrup, we don't want it. Just look for it in your labels. I mean, if you go out to a restaurant and they use it in something, whatever. But try not to bring it home. Like, don't buy the ketchup that has high fructose corn syrup. Things like that are going to really make a difference. Next up, number 3, we have dairy products. One of the most common food intolerances is an intolerance to cow dairy. So a person could have either a lactose intolerance or an intolerance to the proteins in the cow dairy, such as the whey and the casein. A lactose intolerance involves a difficulty digesting the lactose, which is the sugar that is naturally found in dairy. What happens is people with this intolerance eat the dairy, and then the undigested lactose can ferment in the gut, and that causes the gas, bloating, diarrhea, stomach pain, whatever symptom you experience, that is the culprit. And very similarly, an intolerance to the proteins found in milk, like the whey and the casein, also trigger digestive discomfort, like same symptoms, bloating, gas, diarrhea, gut pain. From what I understand, people with a lactose intolerance typically develop it like either as a child or soon after being a child. Like, it's not, you're 26 and now all of a sudden you're lactose intolerant. It's usually like, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen pretty early on. Whereas someone who has an intolerance to the proteins in the dairy, that can happen at any time because that's a sensitivity that has likely occurred due to leaky gut. Using myself as an example, I am or was, it is still unclear, intolerant to the proteins in dairy. I was never intolerant to the lactose. So I could eat dairy my whole life up until the age of 24. All of a sudden, I eat dairy. I had extreme pain in my gut and was running to the washroom. So I stopped eating dairy. I did food sensitivity testing as well, and lactose wasn't actually flagged. It was the proteins in the dairy that were. So I stopped eating it. And just recently, I've started introducing ghee, and I've been eating a fermented dairy. I've tried like a little bit of organic milk powder in like a chocolate bar, and I've been fine because you can, in theory, reverse a sensitivity or intolerance to the proteins in the dairy. A lactose intolerance is when your body just does not produce the enzymes required to break down the lactose. So that is a very different scenario, and that may not be able to be reversed. A way that you could check, which you have if you suspect you have either, lactose pills, like people who have a lactose intolerance will pop one of those pills, which basically provides them with the enzymes required to break down lactose before they eat dairy. So if you take one of those and then you eat dairy and you're fine, then you probably have a lactose intolerance. But if you take one of those, you eat dairy, and you're shitting your pants, you probably have an intolerance to the proteins in the dairy because those enzymes are not going to help you with that problem. You could also try a lactose-free milk because those have been treated with the enzyme lactase, which helps break down lactose. So that would make it easier to digest if you have the lactose intolerance. But again, those are going to contain the casein and the whey. So if you have that intolerance, the lactose-free products aren't going to work for you. You're going to have to go full dairy-free, like coconut milk or almond milk or something like that. I actually find dairy-free to be no big deal for myself. They have dairy-free milk, cheese, yogurts, ice creams, all the things. Most places know about dairy-free, so if you go to a restaurant, it's pretty easy to get the dairy-free alternative or just take the cheese off your burger or whatever. You don't necessarily have to go dairy-free forever if you are intolerant, like you've developed an intolerance to the proteins. If you seal up that gut lining, work on your gut health, you can slowly try to reintroduce it, and a lot of the times people can bring it back. But the quality of the dairy is also going to be very important. Like if you're eating greasy cheeseburgers and like super sugar-loaded yogurts and things like that, that kind of dairy is going to damage your gut. So if you do all this work, go dairy-free, work on healing the gut, and then you reintroduce the same garbage that put you in this situation, you're just going to go right back to where you started. So please don't think that you are going to be able to eat pizza every single day once again, because it's not going to work. You're going to develop all the same symptoms that you already had. What was the point of working so hard to reverse it just to do the same? Now, that doesn't mean you can't have the occasional slice of pizza, but the majority of the dairy that you can consume would be high quality, organic, grass-fed, whatever dairy. The stuff that isn't filled with antibiotics and hormones. We don't want that in our bodies for the most part. Another option would be to try sheep or goat dairy. I personally can eat goat cheese and any sort of goat milk product, no problem. I've even had goat ice cream. It was very good. But I can't have cow, or it couldn't. I don't know anymore. But the point is, if you react to cow dairy all of a sudden, but you don't want to fully give up dairy, try goat or sheep dairy. It's easier to digest, so a lot of people are okay with that. Moving on to number 4, another very common sensitivity or intolerance is gluten. This can be a significant contributor to bloating and digestive discomfort if you have like celiac disease or non-celiac gluten sensitivity. I did do an episode all about gluten not that long ago, so I won't go into too much detail here. I will link that episode in the show notes if you would like to learn more about gluten and how it could potentially be messing you up. All I'll say right now is that the gluten in this country is not what it appears. They break it down so that it's ultra processed. The most nutritious part of the whole grain is removed. That wipes out about 70% of the nutrients, and it helps with shelf life. So that's why they do that. Then they package it up, sell it to you, and promote it as a whole grain product, saying, yes, eat this trashy bread. It's made with whole grains, and you're going to get so much nutrients out of it. But that's just not true. Also, if you look at the other ingredients in the list, there's probably like some inflammatory oils, some unnecessary refined sugars, and who knows what else they've put in there. The problem isn't usually with gluten itself. It's the way we process and grow gluten, because we also drench that shit with glyphosate, which is a chemical. It's like Roundup weed killer. And our bodies don't like that. It's not necessarily the gluten that's the problem, but it's the gluten in North America. That is the problem. If you want to hear more about it, go check out my episode on gluten. Again, I'll link it in the notes for you. Last, but certainly not least, artificial additives and preservatives. I also did an episode on this, so I will link that one as well. I obviously really enjoy talking about all the shitty ingredients that are given to us as food, because I've done an individual episode on a lot of these. I wanted to make this episode just as like a quick 5, if you're bloated, if you're experiencing a lot of gas and other GI symptoms, these 5 ingredients that are often in our food products could be the culprit. I won't go into too much detail on this one either, since I did an entire episode on it. So what I'll just say about this is that, again, the problem is that artificial additives and preservatives are in so much of our food that we're not eating just tiny amounts. We're eating large amounts without realizing it. There's actually some crazy studies on like the amount that we consume that I talked about in the other episode. So go check that out if you are a stats nerd like myself. If you're wondering what are artificial additives and preservatives. Like, they don't just put on the ingredient list artificial additive and preservative. They're usually listed as things like artificial colors would be red 40, fast green, things like that. Those are terrible and can cause ADHD in children. Artificial flavors are things like natural butter flavor, MSG. That would be what it looks like on an ingredient list. These things have all been associated with triggering IBS-like symptoms, aka bloating, gas, all the things. So I personally would recommend steering clear as much as you can, even if you're not reacting to them at this time. They're damaging your gut, so they might cause a reaction later down the line. And even if they don't, we don't want damage to our gut when we're clearly trying to improve our gut health. The other scary thing about these ingredients is that they don't just cause GI problems. They also can increase your risk of certain cancers and disrupt your hormones. All in all, not food, for one, and not doing us any favors by eating this stuff that they put in so much of our food. So go check out that episode. I believe I titled it something like, "Are Additives and Preservatives Really Safe?" quotation marks. But I'll link it in the show notes. So I think you've got a few different episodes to go check out if you haven't already listened to them. Just to summarize what we learned today: artificial sweeteners, high-fructose corn syrup, dairy products, gluten, and artificial additives and preservatives are 5 very common ingredients that may be causing you to bloat or have other digestive issues. These are in tons of our packaged food, so go check out your fridge, your pantry, flip over those labels, and check out the ingredients list. See how many of these things are in there, because it adds up. Yes, we can tolerate a little bit here and there. Like I said, you go out to a friend's place, you go to a restaurant, don't stress about it. That's out of your control and you can enjoy yourself. That's fine. But try not to bring it home with you. Like, if it's in your soda and you have a soda every single day, that adds up. Plus, on top of, like, it's in your ketchup and you put ketchup on a lot of your food. It's too much. It's too much, and it's not our fault that they put it in everything. But now that we are aware, we can take action to reduce our consumption. And it's ultimately going to make us feel so much better. If your goal is to improve your gut health, to eliminate your symptoms, you can't continue to eat these foods that cause damage to the gut lining. It's like trying to patch up a wall while someone's standing beside you punching the wall. You know, I just randomly came up with that analogy. I don't know if that's a good one, but it's doing damage at the same time that you're trying to repair. You're not going to get anywhere. So I recommend removing these not food ingredients that are so common in today's society, unfortunately. At least reduce it as much as you can, and I bet you will feel so much better just by doing that. All about the baby steps, and I would say one small step that you can make that would make a large impact on your health is to just be more mindful of what you're putting into your body. Get into the habit of picking up a product and flipping it over and going through that ingredient list. Every single product I pick up, even if it's from a brand that I trust, I'm reading that ingredient list all the way through, because I don't want to be tricked into eating some nasty ingredients that I don't want to eat. Remember, these food labels are meant to deceive us. They trick us. They don't want us to know how unhealthy they are. So the best thing you can do for yourself is just educate yourself. Read the labels of what you're putting into your body. Your gut sure will thank you for it. Thank you for listening to the Beyond Bloated podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe and leave a review. And don't forget to share this podcast with your fellow gut goddesses. If you'd like to chat about today's episode, send me a DM on Instagram at beyond.bloated. Until next time, bye!